In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Davis. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. So today I am going to be sharing just probably something a little bit more fun, but also some interesting ideas around ins and outs for 2026. So I'm sure you've been seeing these sorts of posts flood if you're on social media, LinkedIn, TikTok if you're on it, Instagram, etc. So I'm going to be doing my take on ins and outs for 2026, work and wellness specifically. And these are things that I have been thinking about, chatting about with friends and Liam and my community. So not to be taken too seriously, just my thoughts and views, but I think there are actually some really interesting ideas in here that we're starting to see a shift in around work and wellness. I'm going to start with the ins. So the first in is paradox. And this is something I've been talking about for quite a while, but when Liam and I were in Thailand over Christmas and New Year, I read Brene Brown's new book, Strong Ground. And Brene also talks in her book about the importance of paradox. And like I said, it's something I've been talking about for a long time, that two things can be true at once. And I think the world is so much more polarizing now, and it's getting more and more so. I suppose polarizing content does very well on social media. And oftentimes people think if they hold one view, then the opposite view or another view cannot also be true. But from a brain perspective, which I think is really interesting, and I was talking to Liam about this yesterday, and that is that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Because every one of us has a unique set of cognitive biases based on the experiences that we've had and the things that we've seen in life. And our brains are inherently lazy. They don't like uncertainty. And so, what happens when we get a piece of information that isn't fully formed is that our brains are meaning making. And so they make meaning based on the existing cognitive biases and information that we have. So our brains literally draw the dots between pieces of information that aren't fully formed yet. And that's exactly why no one will ever see the world in the same way as another person, because we all have our own set of unique cognitive biases and experiences that our brains and our minds contribute to the situation at hand. And so I think that's why it's really important for 2026 to embrace paradox and to, even if someone has a differing opinion or thought on something, rather than shutting it down and thinking you're wrong, I'm right, just understanding from their perspective what are the contributing factors as to why they believe something to be so. And it may or may not change your mind, but what it does is it opens us up to a realm of better empathy, more understanding, and it gives us a little bit of an insight into not only other people, but other perspectives about a situation. And so I actually think being able to hold paradox is going to be one of the most important skills as a human, an employee, a person, a leader, as we continue to move through 2026. So, paradox is my number one in for 2026. The second one is a nutrition based one. So, protein obviously was the hero of 2025, and protein's incredibly important. Particularly as we get older and age, to get really strong muscles, so that as we get older, if we fall or need to be getting up out of our chairs, we've got the strength built to be able to do that. But what is often neglected when we focus on protein is fiber. And that comes in the form of fruits and vegetables primarily, and some whole grains. So, fiber is incredibly important for our gut health, for our digestion. And I know I certainly was guilty at points last year of prioritizing protein, even if it was in the form of packaged processed foods, to be able to hit my protein goal. So in 2026, my in is fiber with protein. And so not sacrificing food quality for the sake of hitting a protein goal, but rather thinking how I can hit that protein goal whilst eating whole foods and making sure that I'm getting 2 serves of fruit, 3 serves of veggies every single day. So, more about internal health and well-being rather than sort of hitting that number on the outside. Now, protein's not going anywhere, still incredibly important, but I do believe that 2026 is going to be the year of fiber. It's not really a sexy macronutrient, is it? But I do think it's going to be the year of fiber. The third one, curating the information that we see and share. So, this is not about being an ostrich with our head in the sand, but rather being discerning about the information that we take as gospel or fact checked, I guess. In the world where we have so much information, we can literally ask ChatGPT for anything. There are so many AI videos online. Being really discerning about what we take as something that is to be true or factual or information. And I think this is really important because it's what creates a lot of discourse in our relationships and in our communities, having all of this misinformation or disinformation out there. And so I think in 2026, what we're going to see is people having to be a lot more discerning about the information that they're seeing and fact checking that information before sharing it wildly. I know I've had friends and family share videos, and they're silly videos. They're not videos of any, important information, but I've really looked at that video and I've said, oh my gosh, that is AI and it looks so real. And then I did a bit of a search to figure out if the information was true, and it's completely unfactual. And it was things about celebrities and things like that. But it's just really important. I think 2026 is going to be the year where everyone gets more discerning about what information they're consuming and whether it's factual. And the year that we really question our information sources. That is also true of education bodies as well. A lot of our education bodies have information that is old and it hasn't been updated with the latest research and studies. And so I think we're going to see a lot more fact checking, discernment, and really wanting to get underneath research and studies to understand if claims that are made about health and well-being and psychology, leadership, anything really, are actually true. Number 4, one of my favorites, putting wellness before work. I think we have started the conversation on this, but I'd like to see 2026 be the year that we all diarise our wellness habits ahead of anything else, ahead of any work meetings, ahead of any projects, even ahead of our loved ones. And why I say that is we cannot be our best selves if we are not first looking after ourselves to then be able to help and look after others. We can do it for a period of time, but it has an expiry date. And so, what I would love to see is this movement of time blocking our well-being habits every single week. And that is like a meeting with a CEO. It does not get moved, it does not get booked over, because whatever comes either side of that, you're going to be so much better for it by looking after your well-being first. One of the sayings that I have is that you can have 100 work problems, but if you have a health issue, you've got one problem. And that's really all that matters. So, 2026, the year of wellness being the first thing that gets scheduled in your calendar every week. Number 5 is a simple one, and I've spoken about this quite a lot before, but reading over scrolling. So I have started taking my Kindle with me in my bag or in my car so that if there are moments where I might be waiting for an appointment or, whenever you would pick up your phone and scroll, my goal for 2026 is to pick up my Kindle and read a page or two. I often have a fiction and a non-fiction book on there, depending on how I'm feeling or what the scenario is, because we don't always want to be reading educational books. Sometimes it's really good just to escape. So I am really, really focusing on reading over scrolling. And in fact, just less scrolling altogether in 2026. I'm feeling a bit of a movement, particularly for my generation. I'm 40 in a month. So, the sort of millennial generation, I think because we grew up without technology, are almost feeling like we want to back away a little bit from wasting our time on mindless scrolling. I also think it's, for me in particular, scrolling is so bad for my mindset in terms of being able to have my own creative thoughts about things. So, reading over scrolling, and I actually really love Opal app. It's free. You can download a free version of it, and it blocks certain apps at certain times of the day. In fact, the founder of Opal has reached out to be on the podcast, so I'm really excited. That episode is coming in 2026. Number 6, courageous conversations. I feel like everyone is so afraid to hurt people's feelings that we are not having challenging conversations anymore. We brush over things, they kind of lay under the surface dormant, but over time, it just builds and builds and builds. And one of my favorite sayings that I teach in my leadership workshops is that clear is kind. And having a difficult conversation is actually not unkind when it's had in the right way. When it starts with, hey, I'm having this conversation with you because I really care about you and I need to let you know X, Y, and Z. Right. And I think what that actually does is it builds trust and it creates clarity for the other person. So 2026, I'm here for the year of difficult conversations. That is not that those conversations need to be angry or terse or aggressive, but rather conversations about things that are really important to get to the root of issues and then move forward with more trust and care. Walking in nature. Walking is not going anywhere. So walking was really big. I love walking in 2025. Silent walks are for 2026. So no tech walks. I take my phone because, of course, in case I get stuck or kidnapped, I need to have my phone with me. But just not having anything in your ears, not learning anything, not listening to anything, not even music. Just being out and about, walking, noticing, being mindful. I have had some of my most creative thoughts while I have been either on a plane with no distraction, when I've been writing or journaling, and when I've been out walking. So walking is not going anywhere in 2026. And the final one, number 8, is living your own rich life. It doesn't matter what your neighbor's rich life is, what your friend's rich life, your family's rich life, but what is a rich life to you? And this does not necessarily mean financially rich, though it can include that if you like. It's just more about what are the things that make you feel like you are experientially and energetically rich. So for Liam and I, travel is a huge one for our rich life. I believe travel creates new experiences, opportunity for your brain to experience new things and create awe, build new neural pathways. I think it builds empathy. It gives you a sense of perspective and adventure, and it makes you problem solve because you're in a new country. So, travel is a really big one for me and Liam about what our rich life is. A fancy car, even though I used to build cars with my dad and we always went to car shows, I can appreciate a great car, but I do not care about driving a very expensive depreciating asset personally. But for some people, that's really important to them and that's their rich life. And maybe they don't care as much about travel or having a house or having clothes. Whatever it is to you that's your rich life, 2026 is about getting extremely clear on what your rich life is and just making sure you're adding a bit of that in every day, week, month, year. Because I truly believe that our state of burnout is because not none of us, that's a very big generalization. Many of us are not clear on our rich life, and we also don't know how to do things to live a rich life. So, those are my 8 ins for 2026. Paradox, being okay with paradox and developing that skill of curiosity. Protein will stay, fiber is coming in for 2026. Curating the information we see and share online, being more discerning about what we're seeing. Putting wellness first. We are booking our wellness in our calendar before anything else. Reading over scrolling. Having courageous conversations, always with care and kindness. Walking in nature, silent, no tech walks. And finally, living your own rich life. Figuring out what that is and living to it. All right, let's go with the outs. These are a little bit shorter. But my first out is cringe. I don't know, I think it's this generation that this recent youngest generation, I hear these kids saying cringe all the time. And I just think cringe is out. Do what you want to do. Because after my dad died, it really reminded me that we are here for such a short amount of time. And when we went and saw John Edward, the psychic medium, and he gave us a reading, he was sharing his philosophy on what happens when you pass. And he said that the only person that you have to face and reflect when you pass or you cross over to the other side is yourself. That's all you're going to be faced with. And so for me, it's really thinking about, am I going to look and be like, you know what? I lived a life true to my values. I did the things I wanted to do, and I didn't care about the opinions of people that were not important in my life. And so for me, 2026, cringe is out. Do what you want to do. If you think it's cringe, if you think it's not, just bloody do it. Number 2, New Year's resolutions that are unrealistic and unsustainable. Because when we create these resolutions that we kind of know in our gut that we're not going to stick to or we don't build habits around, it erodes trust with ourselves. We say we're the type of person who always signs up to things and never does them. So, in my mind, you're better off having 1 or 2 goals that you're going to chip away at. And then, if you achieve them, set some new goals. So, New Year's resolutions that are unrealistic, unsustainable are out. In fact, on the day I'm recording this episode, this is typically known as quitting day, the 9th of January. So, typically, in the first week and a half of January is when people have already thrown their goals out the window. So I encourage you, I like to work on the Chinese calendar or the astrological calendar. February is technically my start of the year, and I'm taking a slower start to 2026, really revising goals, visions, objectives. And I encourage you, if you feel like you set a goal and you think, you know what, I was just doing that because that's what I thought I had to, or I feel like I wanted to, do X, Y, and Z, just revise it. You're not stuck with it. So out, New Year's resolutions that are unrealistic. Number 3, fear-based leadership. It is a very uncertain time in the world at the moment, economically, politically, etc. And what often happens is we see fear based leadership come into play. But fear based leadership erodes trust, it reduces productivity, and it reduces mental health and well-being. And so, whilst that fear base might get short-term results, it will not create long-term sustainable high performance. So, fear-based leadership is out. I've had a fear-based leader in the past, and I know I was absolutely not my best mentally at all, but also from a performance perspective. I did not perform well because I felt like I was constricted in a box rather than being able to think more broadly. So, fear based leadership out in 2026. Number four, avoiding difficult conversations. So, I've already covered off on difficult conversations. Out is avoidance of difficult conversations. Have the tough, courageous conversation. Number five, killing ourselves with our movement. So, I want to see more sustainable movement in 2026, things that really build you up, build your base, rather than deplete the nervous system. So, crazy movement that depletes the nervous system is out for 2026. Number six, the career ladder. Now, we have been taught for so long that we have a position, then we get promoted to the next, then to the next, then to the next. And we're seeing this rise in portfolio careers or freelancing or contracting. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to do that. That's not true, I don't believe. I think a large proportion of jobs will move to a more contracting, freelance, portfolio career style, but many won't. And I think it's really important to be really clear on what you actually want out of your career and your job. So often we take the next step and the next step and the next step because it's the thing that we're encouraged to chase after or focus on and go for, and that means success. But this comes back to 2026 being the year of knowing what your rich life is. And so often I saw this when I was in corporate, people who loved their jobs, they were so good at the job they were doing, were promoted into leadership roles because they were really good at their job. But in my mind, leadership is actually a complete career change, very different to being an individual contributor. And what happened is these people went into these leadership roles, they hated it, they weren't good at it, and the teams under them suffered. And so they went from being perceived as a high performer to a low performer. But the reality was that job just wasn't for them. And just because it's the next technical step up on a ladder doesn't mean it's the next step that you have to take. And so out is the career ladder. In is figuring out what are the skills and experiences that you want to put in your basket over time and chasing after those. So, career ladder out, skills and experiences in. And finally, the CV. So, my friend Julie Fidel, who's amazing on Instagram, if you're interested in careers, go give her a follow. She talks about the CV being dead. And for some roles, I really agree with that. I think it's about how do we showcase our work in a different way, because anyone can use ChatGPT to list out a bunch of experiences, list out a bunch of ways that they've made a contribution to an organization, and there's just no differentiation in it. We've got hundreds and hundreds of CVs applying for jobs at the moment. There's no way for them to stand out. AI's writing them, AI's assessing them on the other end, and I feel like we've lost the humanity in the process. So I would love to think about a different way for applying for roles. Is it through meaningful networking? And it's not those awkward events where you go and have to introduce yourself to everyone, but rather curating your network of people who can introduce you to others for roles. Is it that you do a LinkedIn video or an Instagram post, or maybe you email the hiring manager directly and ask them for a coffee, or send them a piece of work that demonstrates what you could do for their organization? So 2026 is a year of thinking outside the box, getting outside that rigid box of fill in your CV, apply on Seek or LinkedIn, wait to hear back. if you even hear back at all, because so many people don't even hear back. Think outside the box if you're wanting a new opportunity. How can you connect with that person? Do you see on their LinkedIn that they love golf? Not to be a stalker. And you write to them a note on LinkedIn. Hey, I saw your post. I love golf too. By the way, I think I'd be great for your organization. Here's why. So think outside the box. I think 2026 is the year of the CV being out, same as Jules. So to recap, cringe is out. Just do it. Be yourself. Get out there. Do what you want to do. New Year's resolutions that are unrealistic, out. It's still January. We're still early in January. You're not stuck with the resolutions or the goals that you've written. Review them, and if they don't feel good, redo it. Fear-based leadership is out. It's easy to lead with fear in times that feel uncertain. The really courageous thing to do is to lead within values and care. Avoiding difficult conversations, it's out. Clear is kind. Killing ourselves with our movement, that is out as well. So sustainable movement that feels good for you. Blindly following the career ladder is out. And the CV. I predict we're not going to be using CVs in the years to come. So those are my ins and outs for 2026. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments of if you have any additions that you would put on those lists. And as we go into 2026, I want to make sure that this podcast is as valuable and beneficial for you as possible. I'm going to be discussing a lot more ideas this year rather than necessarily tips or tricks. I'll still talk about tips and tricks, but more ideas. Some of them might be less fully formed than usual, but I think that's really important, is that we all grow as a collective by discussing ideas and trying things and being curious and experimenting. I've also got some amazing guests lined up this year, and you'll also be seeing Liam a little bit more on the podcast this year too. So if there is anything that you really want to see on the podcast, if you're a regular listener, write it in the comments or send me an email at angela@mindyourgrit.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Ange Davis. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.